The sky above was bruised purple and gray, as though the heavens themselves. Ash stood near the center of the shattered plaza, boots planted against uneven stone. His jacket fluttered lightly in the wind, and the faint hum of electricity beneath his skin, something only he could feel, responded instinctively to the place. This was no ordinary ruin. Every breath here felt heavier, charged with memory. Across from him stood Volo. The man's pale cloak rippled like a banner caught between past and future, embroidered with archaic symbols most people would dismiss as decoration. His golden eyes gleamed with a knowing sharpness, fixed unblinking on Ash as though peeling back layers of reality itself. The smile he wore was calm, polite, but far too deliberate. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Volo broke the silence, his voice smooth yet reverent, as if addressing a shrine rather than a boy. "My friend," he said, stepping lightly across the stone, boots crunching against fragments of fallen pillar. "You are not from this world. You came from Spear Pillar, did you not?" The wind surged. Ash did not answer. His fingers curled slightly at his side. His eyes lowered, not in guilt, but in restraint. He had learned long ago that silence could be safer than truth, especially in worlds that did not belong to him. Volo studied him closely, then chuckled softly. "Ah, I see." He clasped his hands behind his back and turned his gaze toward the sky. Being silent has spoken hundreds of words alone. It must be, as such, a terrible experience to awaken in a world not your own, to learn everything without guidance. He glanced back at Ash, eyes sharp again. "You knew just like that, didn't you? You knew the people here had no one to help you, no one who could truly understand." Ash swallowed. His throat felt dry. Images flickered behind his eyes, falling through light, the roar of something vast and ancient, the cold stone beneath his hands when he woke. No professor, no Pokeballs at first, no Pikachu at his shoulder, just survival. Volo stepped closer and reached beneath his cloak, producing an object wrapped in plain cloth. He unfolded it carefully, revealing a stone plate etched with glowing symbols, faint but unmistakable. "Don't play dumb," Volo said gently. "I know for a fact that you have a plate on you." Ash's breath caught. Slowly, reluctantly, he reached into his pack. His fingers brushed against cool stone, faintly vibrating, alive with power that resonated deep within his bones. When he pulled it free, the electric plate gleamed softly, yellow light pulsing like a heartbeat. Volo's smile widened, not in triumph but awe. "So it's true." Ash held the plate tightly, knuckles whitening. "Have you ever heard of the Jewel of Life?" Volo asked. Ash nodded. The reaction startled Volo. His eyebrows rose slightly, genuine surprise breaking through his composed mask. "I see," Volo said after a pause, a note of gratitude in his voice. "Then I won't need to explain everything, though it astonishes me that you know of it at all." He straightened, tone shifting, less conversational, more reverent. "The 4 plates are the only things Arceus left behind directly," Volo continued. "After the great Pokémon war across Hisui, after wounds so severe that even a god could not simply ignore them." The wind howled louder, as if reacting to the name. "Nothing that could normally kill him would have been able to," Volo went on, "but even the original one must rest. And so Arceus sent forth all 18 plates, scattering them across Hisui." Ash listened intently. "These plates are not mere relics," Volo said. "They are fragments of divine authority. If gathered, they can call to Arceus himself, and if he answers, he may return a portion of his power." Volo turned, eyes blazing. "He may grant a wish." Ash's heart thudded heavily. A wish. Volo paced slowly now, boots echoing softly. "The other 16 plates are scattered across the land, each guarded by Titan Pokémon, beings empowered to protect what remains of the god's legacy. I cannot do this alone." He stopped in front of Ash. "But you," Volo said quietly, "you have traveled far. You command strength not native to this world. Pokémon answer you, not merely as tools, but as partners." Ash met his gaze. "So," Ash said finally, voice steady, "what do you get out of this?" Volo did not hesitate. "All I want," he said, placing a hand over his heart, "is to meet Arceus. It has been my dream since I was 10 years old." For the first time his voice trembled, not with madness, but longing. "I want to stand before the original one," Volo said, "to understand the truth of creation with my own eyes." Silence fell again. Ash looked down at the electric plate in his hand. He thought of home, of Pikachu, of every world he had walked through and every promise he had made, to himself and to others. A wish could change everything, or break it. Volo extended his hand. Ash stared at it for a long time, thoughts racing, heart heavy. Then slowly he reached out. Their hands clasped. An agreement was formed between two travelers bound by fate, ambition, and a god who slept beyond the veil of time. Above them, thunder rumbled faintly. Somewhere far away, something ancient stirred. His boots scraped softly against the stone as he walked toward the edge of the ruins, cloak trailing behind him like a fading echo of prophecy. Just before the mist swallowed he stopped and reached into his satchel. With a flick of his wrist, a folded map sailed through the air. Ash caught it. The parchment was old, older than most things Ash had touched since arriving in Hisui. Hand-drawn markings circled mountains, lakes, and ruins, each annotated with symbols that pulsed faintly with arcane meaning. "Those are possible locations of plates," Volo said over his shoulder. "Some I will deal with myself, others—" He paused, glancing back with a half-smile. "Others even I cannot reach alone." Ash unfolded the map, eyes scanning the markings. "Understand this," Volo continued. "Many of these places are lost, hidden, or protected by forces that reject intrusion. We will not find them all quickly. It may take years, years." Volo stepped into the fog. "But time," his voice echoed faintly, "is something you seem to have more experience with than you let on." And then he was gone. The wind settled. Ash stood alone once more at Spear Pillar, the map fluttering softly in his hands. The enormity of it pressed down on him. Not just the plates, not just Arceus, but the slow realization that this journey wasn't meant to be rushed. Footsteps echoed against stone. Ash looked up. Two figures approached from opposite sides of the ruins, each radiating a presence as heavy as the mountain itself. Adaman, leader of the Diamond Clan, strode forward first, arms crossed, expression sharp and impatient, dark hair tied back as the wind tugged at his fur-lined attire. At his side walked Irida, leader of the Pearl Clan, her pale blue cloak rippling like water caught in a storm, eyes cool and calculating. They stopped a few steps away from Ash. "So," Adaman said, tilting his head, eyes narrowing, "you're the one." Ash raised an eyebrow. "The one what?" "The one who stood between time and space earlier today," Irida said calmly, and didn't flinch. Ash exhaled slowly. He had hoped word wouldn't spread so fast. "You chose neither Dialga nor Palkia," Adaman added, "and yet you respected both. We have statues honoring them, separate, opposing, eternal." Irida's gaze sharpened. "That choice alone suggests knowledge most people here do not possess." She stepped closer. "Is it possible," she asked, "that you know something about days yet to come?" Ash said nothing at first. Then he shrugged. "I don't think one is more important than the other." Both clan leaders blinked. "Time without space collapses," Ash continued simply. "Space without time is meaningless. Choosing one over the other just to feel right doesn't solve anything." Adaman stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A short, tired laugh, but real. "Ha!" he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Finally, someone honest." He glanced sideways at Irida. "You have no idea how exhausting it is listening to people swear loyalty to an idea they barely understand." Irida frowned, clearly displeased, but before she could respond, she folded her arms. "There is another theory," she said slowly. "Some in the Pearl Clan believe you may belong to a secret clan of Giratina." Ash nearly choked. "What?" he said. "No." The answer came too fast, too blunt. Irida raised an eyebrow. "Awkward denial does not disprove. I'm not," Ash repeated. "I don't even know what that would mean." Irida paced slowly, eyes never leaving him. "You appeared from nowhere," she said. "You ignore authority. You walk your own path. You defy gods without worshipping them. To some, that makes you a rebel. To others, a harbinger." Adaman snorted. "Or just a kid who doesn't like being told what to do." Irida shot him a glare. "So this is serious." "So is not jumping to wild conclusions," Adaman shot back. Their voices rose. "You always reduce things to simplicity. And you always dramatize them." Ash watched, awkwardly shifting his weight as the two leaders bickered like children arguing over a toy. It was Irida who suddenly stopped. She turned sharply toward Ash, eyes flashing. "You said choosing one Pokémon over another is pointless," she said. "That following only one truth is pathetic." Ash nodded. "Yeah." Silence. Irida's jaw tightened. "That," she said coldly, "is an insult to my clan." The air seemed to freeze. "Then defend it," Ash replied, calm but firm. Irida's eyes widened, not with shock but fire. "A Pokémon battle," she said. "Now." Adaman groaned. "Oh, here we go." Ash adjusted his grip on the map, then tucked it safely into his jacket. He met Irida's gaze, steady and unafraid. "Fine," he said, "but just so you know, this isn't about proving who's right." Irida smiled sharply. "Good," she replied, "because it's about showing you why conviction matters." Above them, clouds churned. And somewhere deep beneath Hisui, ancient powers listened. The conflict did not begin with shouting or anger. It began with curiosity. As Ash stepped into the open training grounds near the village center, a quiet tension followed him like a shadow. His presence had already unsettled the social order of Hisui, a boy who defied gods without worship, who respected time and space without pledging allegiance, and who refused to explain himself beyond what he deemed necessary. People did not know what to call him, and uncertainty breeds attention. A crowd gathered slowly at first, then all at once, forming a loose ring around the clearing. Traders paused their work, guards leaned on their spears. Akari stood among them, eyes sharp, sensing that what was about to happen would matter long after the dust settled. Across from Ash stood Irida, leader of the Pearl clan. Her posture was composed, her expression calm, but beneath that serenity lay conviction, hardened by years of responsibility. To her, Pokémon were reflections of ideals, order, balance, devotion. To fail to guide them perfectly was to fail one's duty. Ash, by contrast, stood loosely, hands relaxed, gaze observant but unburdened. He did not look like someone preparing for a decisive battle. He looked like someone ready to listen. The difference unsettled Irida more than open arrogance ever could. Without ceremony, the battle began. Ash released Gengar, whose emergence was met with an audible ripple of unease. The ghost-type's grin was wide, playful, irreverent. He did not bow to the crowd or acknowledge the seriousness of the moment. He hovered lazily, half-phased into shadow, as if the battlefield were merely a stage for entertainment. Irida answered with Gardevoir, whose arrival could not have been more different. She descended in a glow of psychic light, movements fluid and reverent, like a living prayer. Her presence stabilized the air itself, calming and sharpening it simultaneously. Immediately, the clash of philosophies manifested physically. Gengar vanished into the shadows, laughter echoing faintly as the temperature dropped. Gardevoir closed her eyes, psychic senses expanding outward, mapping every distortion, every ripple of ghostly energy. Where Gengar relied on unpredictability, Gardevoir relied on certainty. The first exchange was violent. Psychic force tore through the ground, ripping up stones and dirt as Gengar barely phased through the attack. Shadow claws followed, slashing the air with distorted afterimages, only to be stopped by an invisible psychic barrier. Each impact sent shockwaves outward, rattling the spectators. The fight escalated quickly. Neither Pokémon held dominance. Gengar's tricks were blunted by psychic awareness. Gardevoir's precision was undermined by Gengar's refusal to fight conventionally. They circled, clashed, disengaged, then collided again, an endless cycle of mind versus mischief. Irida issued precise commands, each one clean, deliberate, corrective. Ash, however, spoke rarely. He watched. This absence of control disturbed Irida. Gengar, pressed harder than usual, began to struggle. Psychic pressure forced him partially into reality, denying him full concealment. The crowd murmured, some believing this was the turning point. Then something strange happened. Gengar stopped retreating. Instead, he exaggerated his movements, dramatic gestures, taunting poses, even an outright stumble that sent him rolling across the dirt. Laughter broke out among the onlookers, confusion spreading. Irida frowned. A will-o-wisp? She scoffed as Gengar launched a slow, with obvious flame. Evade. Gardevoir did so effortlessly. Then the truth revealed itself. The flame split, twisted, and collapsed inward, not as an attack, but as a trap. Ghostly fire ignited beneath Gardevoir's footing, disrupting her balance, forcing her to react instead of predict. It was not devastating damage, but it was humiliating. Gardevoir staggered. The crowd gasped, not because of the damage, but because of the realization. What appeared foolish had been intentional. Gengar had weaponized expectation. Irida's frustration surfaced. That Pokémon of yours is undisciplined, she said sharply. Unrefined. Ash laughed softly. That laughter, quiet, unbothered, cut deeper than mockery. I don't train my Pokémon to erase who they are, he said. I train them to trust themselves. The statement shocked the crowd. Irida argued that training meant obedience, correction, mastery. Ash countered with something radical to Hisui: partnership, growth, acceptance of flaws as strengths. Whispers spread. Some called him insane. Others leaned forward, listening. The battle resumed with renewed intensity. Gardevoir attacked with overwhelming psychic force, abandoning restraint. Gengar responded not by fleeing, but by adapting, spinning ghostly flames around himself, forming a counter shield that bent psychic energy inward, dispersing it harmlessly. The technique was unheard of. Akari realized then that this was not improvisation. It was trust refined into instinct. When Ash finally commanded Shadow Ball, it was decisive. The attack struck true. Gardevoir fell to one knee. Irida yielded. The crowd erupted, not merely in excitement but in realization. This battle was never about winning. It was about redefining what strength meant. Ash had not proven himself superior. He had proven something far more dangerous. The early morning mist clung to the ground like a thin veil, brushing against the tops of grass and curling around the trunks of the towering pines that framed the outskirts of Nimbasa City. Akari's boots sank slightly into the damp soil with each step, and her breath emerged in soft clouds that dissolved into the crisp air. She had spent the past week training with Ash, learning to see battles from a perspective she had never considered. He hadn't given her detailed instructions or explicit techniques. Rather, he allowed her to observe, to watch his Pokémon move, to anticipate, to sense, and most importantly, to think. It had been frustrating at first. Akari was used to structure, to schedules, to plans she could analyze and dissect. Ash, however, operated on instinct, a combination of experience, intuition, and sheer adaptability. She had only her Pokémon and her senses, and of course her extra eye, hidden subtly beneath the strands of dark hair that framed her face. The extra eye wasn't just a curiosity. It was a gift, a tool she could use to follow opponents' movements, detect subtleties in their stances, in the twitch of a paw, in the flicker of a gaze. It allowed her to anticipate, even when her mind had no other data to work with. By watching Ash, she had begun to anticipate more than just the opponent's moves. She noticed patterns in thought, in hesitation, in confidence and doubt. The world of battle stretched beyond the field itself. It reached into the psyche of trainer and Pokémon alike. Every tilt of Ash's shoulders, every shift of his weight, every flick his Pokémon's ears became lessons. And through those lessons, Akari's own style had begun to evolve, not from instruction, but from observation, deduction, and reflection. As they walked, the rising sun painted the horizon in shades of gold and rose. Shadows stretched long between the trees, and the distant rumble of a river hinted at the journey still ahead. Captain Celine had given them their next mission with a certain quiet urgency, her words lingering in Akari's mind. "You are to meet a young warden named Leon. He cares for the Lord of the Obsidian Fieldlands. Though young, he has earned his role. He will need your help." His eyes narrowed slightly as he spotted movement in the distance. A figure standing at the edge of a jagged rise, watching them approach. Akari followed his gaze and saw him too. A young boy, no older than 12 or 13, with a posture that radiated confidence and discipline. His dark hair was swept neatly back, and his emerald eyes shone with intelligence and a hint of mischief. A Bulbasaur rested at his side, its vines curling and uncurling as if testing the air. "He must be Leon," Akari whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the wind, but Ash's slight nod confirmed it. As they approached, Leon's eyes flicked over Akari, a quick, appraising glance that seemed to measure not just her strength, but her presence. He didn't look impressed, yet. His gaze lingered on Ash longer, however, and there was a subtle shift in his demeanor, an almost imperceptible spark of recognition, as if he understood the depth of Ash's abilities without needing words. "You must be the ones Captain Celine mentioned," Leon said, his voice steady and measured. "I'm Leon, Warden of the Obsidian Fieldlands. You've come a long way." "Yes," Ash replied simply. "We're here to help." Leon's gaze swept over Akari again, lingering a moment longer this time. "And you? I don't see much experience in a trainer, but perhaps your Pokémon are different." Akari's lips pressed into a thin line, but she did not respond. She had anticipated skepticism. She had trained enough under Ash to know that perception mattered less than action. A nod was all she gave, acknowledging the challenge without words. Leon studied her a moment longer, then turned back to Ash with a small smile. "Good, that's exactly what I was hoping for." They moved together through the fieldlands, the jagged black stones crunching beneath their boots. Small clusters of obsidian grass grew in sheltered patches, glinting like shards of glass. Akari's eyes, the hidden third watching even as her own too scanned the environment, picked up on subtle signs, footprints of wild Pokémon, the glint of metallic scales reflecting the sunlight, the faint traces of energy that indicated a latent presence. After an hour, they reached the base of a large, gnarled tree that rose impossibly high, its bark blackened and twisted as if shaped by ancient fire. At its roots, the air shimmered faintly, a distortion that hinted at the presence of something extraordinary. Leon knelt briefly, whispering into the wind, and a low, resonant hum rolled through the ground. Akari's heart quickened. She had heard of noble Pokémon, legendary creatures entrusted to wardens for protection and guidance, but this was her first time witnessing one in the wild. The leaves rustled above, and a shadow moved among the branches. Slowly, deliberately, a creature emerged. It was massive, with scales that shimmered like molten obsidian, eyes that burned like amber coals, and wings that stretched wider than any bird she had ever seen. Its presence was both terrifying and majestic, radiating an aura of raw power that seemed to press against the air itself, curling and twisting around jagged rock spires that jutted from the earth like the teeth of some colossal creature. The wind whistled through the crags, carrying a metallic tang of stone dust and the distant roar of a titan, shaking the very ground beneath Ash's boots. The towering figure of Cleaver appeared on the ridge, its chitinous legs pounding the earth in a rhythm that seemed to echo through the valleys. Its stone axe-like arms glinted in the pale sunlight, jagged and deadly, a terrifying reminder of nature's raw, unyielding power. Ash's heart pounded in his chest, and yet, despite the danger, his eyes were sharp, calculating. This was no ordinary encounter. Cleaver was a Titan-level Pokémon, one of the few creatures whose sheer size and power could turn even the most seasoned trainers' stomachs. Beside him, Greninja crouched, muscles coiled like springs, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Its dark blue skin shimmered faintly under the mist, and the orange chest and scarf-like tongue wrapped around its neck rippled with tension. Every sinew of the Pokémon radiated readiness and anticipation. Across the battlefield, Akari stepped forward, eyes narrowing as she released a Pokeball. The crimson light expanded, and with a flash a new catch materialized. Hisui and Sneasel. The Pokemon's fur was a pale, icy gray, contrasting sharply with its sharp red talons and cunning amber eyes. Its movements were deliberate, calculating, agility and speed personified, designed for evasion and precision strikes. The battlefield was alive, a chaotic landscape of rock spires, crumbling stone, and dense fog that made distance hard to judge. Every footfall, every gust of wind carried the weight of the coming clash. Ash's mind raced as he scanned the terrain, searching for cover and vantage points. He had faced countless powerful Pokémon before, but never on this scale, not in this raw, untamed environment, and then Cleaver roared. The sound was deafening, reverberating through the mountains like a drum of war. Even the fog seemed to quiver under its force. Sneasel darted forward immediately, a blur of frost-colored fur and deadly claws, while Greninja followed Ash's subtle command, moving in perfect synchrony. The two Pokémon moved as one, speed their primary weapon against the Titan looming over them. The first exchange was a test of reflexes and agility. Sneasel weaved between the swinging stone axes, talons scraping against the granite floor, while Greninja struck with Night Slash, its blade-like water blades slicing through the air toward Cleaver's massive legs. Sparks erupted on contact as stone met steel in a resounding clash, sending tremors through the rocks. Despite their speed, the sheer power of Cleaver's swings left marks on the ground that could swallow a full-grown Pokémon whole. Greninja's form blurred as it launched a series of acrobatic flips, somersaulting over the Titan's sweeping axes with fluid precision. It leapt off a jagged boulder and executed acrobatics, spinning through the air to strike at Cleaver's exposed shoulder joint with a barrage of sharp Night Slash blades. Each landing was precise, every jump perfectly timed, a demonstration of pure skill and agility. At the same time, Greninja created double-team clones, scattering after images across the battlefield. Cleaver's massive stone axes struck empty air, smashing boulders and creating clouds of dust, while the real Greninja prepared its next strike from an unexpected angle. The chaos of the battlefield was a blur. Rocks shattered, dust filled the air, and every movement was a deadly ballet. Sneasel attempted to dart behind Cleaver, but the Titan's swing was brutal. The claw of the axe would have hit if Greninja hadn't leapt into action again, using Double Team to confuse the Titan. One shadow leaped at the joint, while another circled behind, forcing Cleaver to turn defensively. A flash of blue and orange, and the Night Slash landed, chipping away at the Titan's armor. Yet even as Greninja defended, some shards of rock ricocheted, and the Water Ninja took minor damage, enough to remind Ash of the stakes. The fog shifted, revealing the battlefield in jagged patches, and Ash quickly noted the natural cover. Rocks, boulders, and spires became crucial, not just for defense but for tactical advantage. He barked a command to Sneasel, but Akari hesitated, making a judgment call that would cost her dearly. Sneasel, attempting to strike from an exposed position, was nearly crushed by one of Cleaver's brutal swings. A flash of frost and claws, and the Hisuian Pokémon was badly injured. Akari froze, panic flashing in her eyes as she realized the consequences of her hesitation. Without hesitation, Ash acted. Greninja leaped in a blur of blue, shielding Sneasel with its own body. The water ninja's form seemed almost ethereal, twisting and spinning to deflect attacks, each movement precise and deliberate. Ash rushed forward, scooping Sneasel into his arms. The Pokémon shivered, frost glittering along its injured fur, and Akari stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. She hugged the small Pokémon, whispering apologies and reassurances. The bond between trainer and Pokémon palpable and raw. Ash's gaze shifted back to Greninja, his expression tightening. This wasn't a fight he could take lightly. Cleaver was not just powerful, it was a force of nature. The Titan's movements were deliberate, each swing of its stone axe radiating raw, destructive energy. Greninja crouched, muscles tensing, as if anticipating Ash's next move. The clash resumed. This time, Ash unleashed Greninja's full arsenal. The Pokémon darted across the battlefield, using acrobatics to vault off rocks, flipping over swiping stone axes. Double Team created dozens of afterimages, each one a blur, forcing Cleaver to swing wildly and miss repeatedly. Night Slash slashed at exposed armor plates, and Water Shurikens spun like whirling blades, striking at joints and fissures in the Titan's defenses. Greninja's movements were a perfect blend of speed and precision, a symphony of attack and evasion. The Titan roared in frustration. Each missed swing sent dust clouds into the air, reducing visibility. Ash used the chaos to maneuver closer to vantage points, barking commands and adjusting Greninja's trajectory mid-battle. The combination of acrobatics and double team allowed Greninja to move unpredictably, hitting from above, below, and behind, making the Titan's attacks ineffective. Sneasel, now stabilized, began to regain courage, darting forward in bursts of frost-laced strikes, coordinating with Greninja in a duo of speed and cunning. Minutes stretched into tense moments. Greninja struck with relentless precision, Water Shuriken cutting at Cleaver's joints, while Night Slash targeted gaps in the Titan's armor. Acrobatics allowed mid-air adjustments, dodging falling boulders and returning strikes in a breathtaking display of skill. Double Team afterimages forced Cleaver to swing desperately, losing balance and sending chunks of stone flying in all directions. Ash's commands were subtle, almost imperceptible, yet Greninja responded flawlessly, a testament to years of training and perfect synchronization. Then came the decisive moment. Greninja leapt high above Cleaver, spinning in midair with a final acrobatic strike, Night Slash blades striking in a precise arc while Water Shurikens spun around it like a cyclone. Cleaver swung its axe in desperation, but this time all attacks missed. The afterimages and timing had done their work. The Titan toppled, crashing to the rocky floor with a thunderous roar. Dust and stone rained down in clouds, and for a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the labored breaths of the Pokémon and trainers alike. Ash lowered Greninja to the ground, giving the water ninja a nod of respect, sweat dripping from his brow, his clothes torn and dust-streaked. The battlefield was a mess of shattered rocks, gouged earth, and scattered boulders. Cleaver lay defeated, its massive form now still, a testament to the combined strength, agility, and strategy of Ash and Greninja. Amid the chaos, Ash spotted a small, glimmering object among the rocks, a rare bug plate, partially buried in dust and rubble. He picked it up carefully, examining the intricately carved symbol that seemed to pulse faintly with latent energy. Victory had brought its rewards, tangible and symbolic alike. Akari approached slowly, Sneasel cradled safely in her arms. Tears streaked her face, but her eyes shone with gratitude and awe. "Thank you, Ash," she whispered, her voice trembling. I should have been more careful." Ash simply shook his head, a small, wry smile tugging at his lips. "We learn from our mistakes. That's how we grow stronger. And you're not alone in this. We all have our battles to fight." The fog began to lift, sunlight breaking through in slanted beams that illuminated the rocky valley. Greninja shook its limbs, water droplets scattering in the sunlight like tiny diamonds. Sneasel, still trembling, nuzzled against Akari, a sign of trust and reassurance. And Ash, holding the bug plate, felt a renewed sense of purpose. This battle had been more than a test of strength. It had been a reminder of the delicate balance between speed, power, strategy, and trust. As the wind swept across the battlefield, carrying the echoes of Cleaver's final roar, Ash looked toward the horizon. The mountains stretched endlessly, a tapestry of danger and opportunity, waiting for the next challenge. And he knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that he and Greninja. The night had settled over the obsidian fieldlands like a thick, velvety blanket, the moon casting pale silver light across the jagged black rocks and twisted trees. In the quiet aftermath of the battle, the tension that had gripped the noble Pokémon slowly dissipated, replaced by a cautious calm. Leon knelt beside the massive creature, his hands lightly brushing its obsidian scales. The Lord of the Fieldlands gave a deep, resonant rumble, and then lowered its head, exhaling a slow, measured breath. "It's calmer now," Leon murmured almost in disbelief. His eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing through the otherwise disciplined mask he wore. "I don't know how it got so agitated in the first place, but thanks to both of you, it's safe again." Akari, sitting slightly apart with her Pokémon resting quietly beside her, felt a flicker of satisfaction. The lessons she had absorbed under Ash, patience, observation, anticipation, had come together in a real-world test. Leon's gratitude, quiet and sincere, touched her more than she expected. I promise I'll keep a closer eye on him from now on," Leon said, running a hand along the noble Pokémon's massive jaw. "I can't let something like this happen again." Ash nodded, watching with a faint smile. "You're learning fast. That's the most important part." Leon's eyes lifted toward them. "You should rest. You've both earned it." He gestured toward a small, modest house nestled against the edge of the field, partially hidden among jagged rocks and low-lying trees. "You can stay the night here. I insist." Akari sank into the nearest chair inside, her muscles aching from the day's exertion. The house smelled faintly of herbs and wood smoke, warm and inviting after the chill of the fieldlands. Leon's hospitality was quiet, understated, but genuine. Akari allowed herself to sink into the comfort, letting her Pokémon curl up beside her. Morning came too early. Akari was still half asleep when the sound of hurried footsteps on the wooden floorboards outside the house pulled her from her dreams. She squinted at the window, frowning, her mood souring at the interruption. She hadn't asked for this early wake-up call. A voice called through the open doorway, bright and energetic. "Hey, are you guys awake? I've been waiting." Akari groaned, rolling over, her third eye twitching in irritation. "Of course I am," she muttered under her breath. She rubbed her eyes and stepped outside, her hair sticking in damp strands from sleep. Standing before her was a young boy, perhaps slightly older than Leon, with striking purple hair that fell in messy layers around his face. His eyes gleamed with energy, his stance impatient, almost challenging. Akari's initial irritation flared, but she forced herself to remain polite. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice calm but edged with a subtle warning. She was annoyed, yes, but not rude. The boy had shown up at her door uninvited, and that alone deserved caution. Ash stepped out behind her, his expression a mixture of shock and recognition. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came at first. The boy, because that was clearly his name, had a presence that reminded him of someone he once knew. Paul, his old rival. But the resemblance was uncanny, though subtly different. The coldness, the calculating demeanor, the locked-away intensity, it was all there, but there was a certain relaxed quality to Reggie that Paul had never possessed. Ash's mind raced as he studied him, noting the faintly melodic hum of a song he seemed to be singing under his breath, almost teasing the morning air. You must be an ancestor of him," Ash muttered under her breath, more to herself than anyone else, her eyes narrowing. Reggie's eyes finally lifted, scanning Ash and then Akari with a mix of curiosity and barely restrained impatience. "Name's Reggie," he said simply. "I've been hearing about a mercenary trainer who's been making waves all over Hisui. Word is, you're the one. I came to battle you." Ash blinked, momentarily taken aback. He glanced at Akari, who simply raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "We're on our way back to the village to report the mission's success," Ash said slowly. "You'll have to wait." Reggie's face twisted into a frustrated scowl. "Wait, I don't do waiting. I've been traveling just to see if you're worth the hype, and you're just leaving?" He gestured dramatically, pacing a few steps, his frustration spilling over into a tangential rant. "Everyone says you're fearless, untouchable, but if you're just going to walk away from a chance to prove it, then what's the point? Coward? Or what, just uninterested?" Akari's patience snapped just slightly. "Hey, she interjected, stepping closer, her stance protective. Her Pokémon mirrored her tension, bristling slightly, a subtle warning in their body language. You don't speak to him or me like that. You clearly don't understand the situation. Reggie paused, turning his gaze on her, surprise flickering across his face. He seemed slightly taken aback by her directness, the protective energy she radiated. Oh, I see. So you're one of those types. Protector types. Not a fighter, but one who makes sure no one else gets hurt, huh? His tone was half teasing, half admiration. Akari's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice firm. Exactly, and I don't appreciate someone undermining what we do just to satisfy their ego. You need to wait. That's final. Reggie's scowl softened, replaced by a thoughtful expression. He tilted his head, considering her words. Fair enough. You're pretty good. I can see why Ash didn't dismiss you entirely. He turned his attention back to Ash, a spark of challenge in his eyes. But I am here for a battle. Don't think I'm leaving without seeing it. Ash's eyes glimmered with a faint smile, his mind already calculating. He's strong. If I've trained her well, maybe she can match this challenge too. Could be a good test for both of us. His calm, calculating gaze adjusted his cap and smirked at the challenge before him. Across the field, Akari's fiery eyes blazed with determination, her hands clenching the Pokeball she held like it was an extension of her will. You ready for this? Akari asked, her voice steady, but carrying the excitement that only a true trainer could feel before a battle. Reggie's grin widened. Always. Let's see what you've got. The two trainers released their Pokémon simultaneously. A bright purple Skorupi skittered from Reggie's Pokeball, its pincers clicking ominously, tail curled high and glinting with venomous potential. Across the field, Akari's Ponyta erupted in flame as its hooves hit the ground, the fiery mane crackling with anticipation. Sparks danced off its flames with each impatient paw stomp. The first clash was tense. Skorupi advanced carefully, its multifaceted eyes flicking between Ponyta and Akari. Skorupi, use Poison Fang, Reggie commanded, confidence lining his tone. Ponyta's ears twitched, its hooves struck the ground, and it surged forward, but a flash of purple fangs met the fiery Pokémon mid-step. The poison seared briefly at the edges of Ponyta's mane, but the flames seemed almost to shrug off the venom. Akari's eyes gleamed with fiery determination. Flame charge, Ponyta! Show it what fire can do! She shouted. In a dazzling display, Ponyta bolted forward, mane blazing like a streak of molten gold. The sudden speed caught Skorupi off guard, and before it could react, Ponyta struck with precision, a wave of fire and energy that knocked the bug Pokémon back several feet. Dust and sparks swirled as the impact cratered the ground, drawing gasps from the crowd. Reggie's brow furrowed, but he quickly regained his composure. Not bad, he muttered under his breath, though there was a glint of respect in his eyes. Skorupi hissed, recovering its stance. Its tail flicked menacingly, ready to strike again. The battle escalated in intensity as Reggie withdrew Skorupi, replacing it with Dartrix. The grass-type owl Pokémon flapped gracefully into the air, feathers rustling in a whisper of wind. Its emerald eyes locked onto Ponyta with calculated intent. Akari, feeling the shift, knew the battle was tipping. Dartrix, let's take to the skies, Reggie commanded, a strategic edge sharpening his words. Ponyta pawed the ground, mane flickering with nervous heat. Don't let it intimidate you, Akari whispered, though even she felt the pressure. The sudden aerial advantage and type matchup put her on edge, but Ash, standing at the sidelines with crossed arms, observed keenly. Huh, Ash murmured. Reggie might be a rookie, but he's got a plan. Look at how he's positioning Dartrix. He knows exactly how to control the battlefield. Ponyta surged forward again, flames trailing, attempting to close the gap between the ground and the flying owl. But Dartrix was swift, soaring high and gathering energy from the sunlight. Energy ball, Reggie called, the grass orb growing radiant as it drew in the sun's power. Ponyta darted to the side, attempting to evade the attack, but the force of Dartrix's energy ball veered it dangerously. Yet Akari's instinctive commands kept her Pokémon moving. The tension crackled in the air, each second stretching like an eternity. Dartrix swooped, feathers slicing the air, eyes locked on its target. Shadow's Claw! Reggie added, the shadowy talons extending as the attack slashed with precision. Ponyta tried to evade, but the shadows found their mark. Ponyta stumbled, hooves skidding across the dirt, flames flickering but undiminished. Dartrix had the advantage, Reggie's tactical brilliance showing through. Akari's mind raced. Ponyta's firepower had been her ace, but Dartrix's type advantage and aerial control threatened to overwhelm her. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from the exhilaration of facing a worthy opponent. "Oshawott, it's your turn!" Akari called decisively, releasing the water-type Pokémon from its Pokéball. The small sea otter landed with a splash of energy on the dry ground, eyes blazing with determination as if it understood the gravity of the battle. Reggie's lips curled into a knowing smirk. "A water type? Against my grass type. That's ambitious." Dartrix tilted its head, almost mocking the diminutive water Pokémon, but Oshawott bristled at the challenge. It may have been small, but its spirit burned brightly. Akari stepped forward, hands steady. "We've trained for this. Oshawott, Aqua Jet, show it your speed!" The battle became a blur of movement. Dartrix leapt into the air, graceful and almost untouchable, as Oshawott tried desperately to land a hit. Every Aqua Jet move carried speed, but Dartrix anticipated each strike with cold, calculated precision, swooping and using air slash to whip the sand into blinding clouds around Oshawott. Akari's hands flew through the air, signaling commands. "Stay focused, Oshawott! Aqua Jet again, now! Move faster! Strike harder!" Oshawott's movements became a streak of blue and white, charging through the sandstorm. The crowd watched, rapt, as the tiny Pokémon dodged razor-like feathers and prepared for a single, decisive strike. Its shell gleamed, glinting like a knight's shield in the fading sun. Reggie's eyes narrowed. He wasn't underestimating Oshawott, but he had predicted this move. "Dartrix, Shadow's Claw, counter it!" Dartrix swooped downward, claws extended as Oshawott lunged. The clash was immediate. The shell met the talon in a shattering strike. The impact sent Oshawott skidding back across the dusty field. Akari's pulse raced. "No, get up, Oshawott, now!" With a surge of determination, Oshawott rebounded, Aqua Jet carrying it forward with unstoppable force. Reggie, now realizing the tenacity of Akari's Pokémon, kept Dartrix moving, dodging, and weaving. The air crackled with energy as two Pokémon, vastly different in size and type, engaged in a duel that seemed almost choreographed by fate itself. Moments stretched, seconds feeling like lifetimes. Finally, Akari saw a sliver of opportunity. "Oshawott, Razor Shell, go for it!" The water Pokémon charged, shell gleaming like polished steel. Dartrix tried to twist midair, but Akari had read its pattern, anticipating its evasive maneuvers. The clash was cataclysmic. The Razor Shell met Dartrix's shadow talons in a blinding explosion of power, dust and sparks flying in all directions. Reggie's smirk faltered just slightly. He had underestimated Oshawott's resilience, the cunning combination of speed and raw determination that Akari had trained into her Pokémon. Dartrix, feathers ruffled but eyes still sharp, countered with a final, calculated strike, sending Oshawott staggering back, defeated but not broken in spirit. The crowd erupted in cheers, a mixture of awe and tension. Ash's arms were crossed tightly. "Damn, that Reggie. Even if he's new, he's not playing around." That was some strategic thinking, predicting Oshawott's Razor Shell like that. Akari knelt beside her Pokémon, breathing heavily but smiling despite the loss. "You did your best. I couldn't have asked for a better fight." She looked up at Reggie, respect shining in her eyes. "You're stronger than I thought. I'll train harder." Reggie nodded, a small, genuine smile forming. "And I'll be ready for the next one. That's the fun of battling, isn't it?" The sun dipped lower, casting the battlefield in a warm glow. Dust swirled around the exhausted but proud Pokémon, their trainer's bond evident in every glance, every command, every shared moment of struggle and triumph. It wasn't just a battle of type advantages or attack strategies, it was a battle of hearts, determination, and willpower. And though the scoreboard had declared Reggie the winner, both trainers knew the real victory lay in the experience, in the lessons learned, and in the sparks of friendship and rivalry that had been ignited that day. As they recalled their Pokémon, the crowd's cheers blending into the wind, Akari and Reggie exchanged a nod, silent acknowledgement of a battle that would be remembered for a long time.